edition of the Big 12 Mafia Show on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me is one of my partners in crime. That would be Wild Ute. How you doing tonight, Ute?
What's up? Hey, how's it going? How's it going, everybody?
You're now like a guest star because you're not on my shows every week now. So it's great to see you on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then we have a special guest tonight. I want to open this up to all, pretty much anybody who's a Big 12 fan, or for that matter, a college football fan. This is the parent of somebody who's been right in the center of almost every possible and conceivable thing that is going on with college football right now. That's Shawn Tanuvasa. How are we doing tonight, Shawn?
Oh, great, man. It's nice. The weather's getting a little bit warmer out here, so I'm grateful for that. But good to be with you guys tonight.
Absolutely. We're so glad to have you, and I really looking forward to some of the answers you're going to give. We're going to ask some pretty interesting questions tonight. We're not really surface people around here, as you all know, but feel free to put any questions you might have in the comment section. If we have time, we'll get to them. Of course, you know how it works. If it's a super chat, we always read those. So if you want to get to a question to Shawn before he leaves at the end of the interview, make it a super chat. We'll be sure to get to that thing. All right, I want to start off with one thing that you might find interesting, and actually what hooked you up with Ute and I immediately is when you created your new logo on Twitter. And let me just show you, this is the original website on Twitter that we came up with. You can see it's Ute and me, and it was the Holy Rivals show, and the show was just built around BYU and Utah and the Holy War. And then we turned around and said we just didn't have time for all of it, so we sort of put that in back. But you can kind of tell you're in the middle of this poll, right, between these two great fan bases. And I just want to make sure you knew that this isn't something we came up with yesterday. We worked on this 2 years ago. So we appreciate you being in the middle with us tonight.
Well, I'm glad you guys laid the tracks down. Now it'll be smooth sailing for me. You guys...
Perhaps, maybe, Shawn. maybe.
Okay,
we're gonna set the table. We gotta set the table, tell the backstory and everything. Because Shawn, a lot of the folks that are in our communities are in Big 12, Big 10 spaces, college football communities, not necessarily Utah and BYU spaces. Yeah. So they might be hearing this story for like the first time and kind of what. The reason we wanted to have you on, just to have a general conversation about, how close it is, Utah, BYU, the emotions involved both sides, Keanu's decision recently that was made and everything that caused a lot of controversy, at least locally and stuff, a lot of commotion and everything, and just bring that out to the outside Big 12, Big 10 space and everything. So that's the goal for today, but we got to set that table first.
I was just going to say, can we have him introduce himself first, Phil? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your son, Keanu.
All right. I'm born and raised from Hawaii. Married a California girl, raised Keanu out there. He was born and raised out there. I played for Utah in 94, 95, back in the day with Coach Ron McBride. And Whit was our linebacker coach at the time. Fred Whittingham was also there. Coaching, and I grew up, I grew up in Laie, Hawaii, which is in the streets of BYU, Hawaii, actually. And so most of the people that came out of Laie went to BYU, played for BYU back in the day, the Anai brothers, Lake Muli, and so Byron Beatty, the list goes on. There's just people from my hometown that played at BYU, and Martha Tuwaya and I played together since we were in Pop Warner, like 6th grade. Itula Mili and I played. So my roots on the BYU side goes really deep, but my veins always bled red. And when I came to play, I played there. And when I grew up, my son Keanu played for Utah. He was a Red guy. He loved it. He loved Utah football. We would watch it every year. Every year it was on TV. We didn't miss it. So then he ended up signing and playing for the University of Utah. and played there for 3 years and absolutely loved it. And now is in Provo, wearing blue, and is part of the BYU football team.
Go ahead, you.
Yeah, so I think that what caused okay, so that was all like the laying the foundation and everything there. So Keanu was a starter, one of the best players in the defensive line for the University of Utah. And Keanu was as you know, Shawn, he's your son, obviously here. He was I consider him the emotional leader for Utes and defense. And he was just a very important player. Hey, do you mind actually muting your mic a little bit? I'm getting some feedback. If that's okay. I think so.
Yeah, if that's all
mine?
right. Or I can mute it for you. You want me to do that? Let me just mute it for you.
Okay.
There you go, you.
Perfect.
Sorry, I'll turn it on and off.
Yeah. So when Keanu moved to BYU, it was a difficult move for the family, which Shawn will get into and everything, but also like amongst Ute fan base because of the passion that the Ute program, the fans had for Keanu, nicknamed New, and really because of his love for the game. I mean, his love for the game is contagious. Like he was really the positive presence for the Utes. And like I am a season ticket holder. I've seen him play so many games live, and I've seen him like even with timeouts and everything. He's the guy that's actually bringing positivity to the football team and pumping everybody up and just changing the momentum and everything. So I would say that Keanu Tanuvasa was probably one of the most beloved Utes, certainly. And like for good reason, he's just a good guy and everything. So when he did make the move over to BYU and stuff, it kind of it was difficult. It was painful and everything, I think, for a lot of Ute fans. Obviously, Shawn, you too, as a former player and stuff, and it was difficult. We'll let you speak to that and everything, your experience there. But just to lay it all out and everything, locally amongst Utes and BYU fan bases and stuff, there was a lot of discussion about it and everything because he meant so much to the Ute program. He's such a fantastic player.
Go ahead, Shawn.
So yeah, he was actually, and he loved Utah, and he still does. He embodied what the Utah program was all about. He went in there, and he knew that the slogan, we don't become you, you become us. He took that to heart, and he became a nasty ball hawk. Basically Scally's way of creating that type of a defense. And he just took it on. He embraced it. He dreamt it, slept it, ate it. And so he then started to grow more and more into who he was. And he was always this way, actually. He was always a passionate leader. And he still is. But he was that way as a kid. And we let him go. We let him spread his wings and fly. And Utah took into that, and I think the fan bases did, and he knew how to get the fan bases involved in the game a little bit more. And so, for New, there was nothing else but Utah. There was nothing else in his mind. He knew he had charted his course, he served his mission, and then he was going to go to Utah, and then he was going to go to the NFL, and he would come back, and he would be the greatest Ute in his mind that ever played. I mean, that was just his understanding of his path. And then something happened. And like you mentioned, it was very emotional. It was very, very, very emotional. When he told my wife and I literally was like, what are you talking about? Why? Like, is your brain on right? You've been functioning just fine for 3 years. What's going on here? And he just said, Dad, I haven't signed the contract. I haven't signed it, and I don't know why. And I said, do you have any problems with it? Is it not enough? Do you want to go back to the negotiating board? What do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know what I want to do right now. And this is after he tweeted out isn't the song till the day I die. I
Right.
mean,
The
that's,
Utah man one, right?
yes, that's part of the Utah
Right.
man that he loves to sing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That he embraced, and so he's fully committed, and all of a sudden he's deciding, I'm just gonna hold off, and he had no reason. So one day I come home, and my wife's like, yeah, a new guy you mad at me and yelled at me, and I'm like, and my kids know they don't talk to their mom anyway in a disrespectful form. So he got a call from me, and I was like, hey, what happened? And he told me, and I'm like, you're out of line. He's like, yeah, I know. And I said, well, why that? And he was like, I don't know, Dad. He's like, you and Mom keep asking me about this whole thing, and you're asking me why, and I'm telling you I don't know why. And for us, it was, there's no other choice. You're a Utah guy. We're a Utah family. There's no other choice. So I'm not sure what your issue is, son. And that took a few days to settle. Then once, we realized that we had raised him and he was 22 and not 15. And,
Right.
I couldn't tell him at 15, son, man, what you're thinking is not right. Let me help you with your thinking and think this way.
Right.
He's 22 years old. He served the mission for the church.
Right.
He was old enough. He was mature enough to recognize what he needed to do with his life and to govern it himself. And then he said this to me, and it shut me down basically from trying to persuade him anymore to stay. And it was, Dad, you taught us how to listen to God when he speaks. And when God speaks, you do what he says. And I'm just trying to do what he said. And so if that's a problem, then I don't understand. Ooh, sorry, get a little.
No, it's okay.
It's all good.
And I got it right. I was like, yeah, you're right. I taught you that. But there was so much desire for him to keep being a youth. And he said, it doesn't mean that I'm not going back. I could go back just any day, and I know they would embrace me if I decide, to go back. And by this time, this was the time when he had already decided to go into the transfer portal. So it was by this time he was saying that, and that's when he said that to me. That when the heavens are speaking, we try to listen. And I said, I hear you. So that's when he decided to go, and after much prayer and fasting and the things we do in the church, we supported him, and we said, okay, whatever you want to do. And so then that Sunday he made the decision that he wanted to go into the transfer portal. He didn't know where to go, but he was going to go into the transfer portal. And so we said, okay, you need to call your coaches and you need to talk to them. And he did. And he spoke to Scally first, and then he spoke to Luis Powell, and then Ellis. Ellis was on a plane, so he didn't get a chance. He would have called Ellis first, but Ellis was on a plane, and then and then it got really emotional. It got difficult because it was, the feeling I got is like they weren't mad at New, they were hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That's the feeling I got, right? They weren't mad like, oh yeah, here you go, you think you're this, you want to leave. They love him so much, and he loves them so much that it hurt, like when a relationship kind of breaks.
Right.
So, but he still was interested. And after that, the next day he put his name in, and it went crazy. And I was next to him, and we just kind of dealt with it together. And he was talking to coaches all over. His phone was ringing and texting like crazy. So,
how many different schools reached out to New when he entered the portal?
well, the first school that reached out in I think 30 seconds or a minute was SMU. SMU was the first school
Wow. Okay.
that came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, some of them he didn't respond to. Some of them he didn't. He thought like, initially he thought like, oh, I need to respond to him like I was in high school,
Right. Yeah.
But there must have been 40 text messages from different coaches. So he asked me like, what do I do? And I said, that's too much. You can't do that. That's too much
Right.
for me. So this is not like high school where they come in one or twice or three times, and he got up to like 20, but he dealt with it over a span of 2 months.
Right.
He said, this is too much. So I said, just pick the ones you're very interested in and let's talk to them. And so he did. And he whittled it down to 2, which was he talked to Coach Nason a little bit from Texas and Coach Trey from Georgia. There was a little bit of interaction between SC and Washington and Michigan, but it was mainly Coach Trey was the main guy at Georgia. He was blown away that actually they were interested in him. That's the truth. He was very blown away by the whole thing. And so he spent time talking to Coach Trey. Christmas Eve, dude, Coach Trey he's a good man, very good man, because we're together as a family and he's on the phone with New on Christmas Eve. And he's like, bro, I got 2 sons and they're with their mom in the next room and I'm talking to you on Christmas Eve. This is how much we want you.
Wow.
So
is that the defensive line coach for Georgia?
Yep. He's the D-line coach, the D-line coach for Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shawn, sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, a lot of people, it blows me away that you're talking about 40 schools within, let's say, hours that want to reach out and get your son. It quickly makes the BYU Utah thing sort of thin out a little bit more, doesn't it? It's not just those 2 schools. Now you've got basically all of big time college football wanting to talk to your son. And this is the thing that sticks out in the etherverse that people are confused by is we've heard several comments from several coaches that the only differentiator for going to BYU versus anybody else was they could pay a little bit more money in NIL funds.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that seems trite. It doesn't seem very deep. It certainly doesn't feel searching to me. It's just an offhand comment. You just want to get it out of your head. We lost this guy, and the only reason we lost it was because somebody wrote a bigger check. Can you just take that and just break it down into its easiest piece? It's not all that?
Yeah, I think, and that's hard to, if your values are different, right? And if somebody else's values is more meaningful, right? It's what you focus on.
Right.
Then it's difficult to understand why the NIL wasn't the primary factor. Was it a factor? Absolutely. I mean,
right.
He has to live in the age that he's living in, right?
Yeah, we're not naive to that, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So that was a factor, obviously. But as I stated once in a Twitter to somebody, I responded to somebody. I said, look, Utah offered enough to keep him. Now, I used the word enough to say, I didn't want to say they offered more.
Right.
I just wanted to say they offered enough to say Utah has the funds, number one. And number two, it's not about the NIL for new.
Right.
If it was, then we would say, oh, he got more at BYU, or he got more at Utah. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
And so I carefully made sure that I used that word enough to say he was happy. And when it comes to that issue, he was content with it.
Okay.
So that wasn't the biggest swing factor. Yeah.
Say that again, Philip?
That wasn't the biggest swing factor in the decision. So it's basically the baseline. Okay. Baseline, if the money's okay, then let's go to the next priority here.
Right.
And so the priority seems like this kind of gut feeling, right? Like that you were talking about, or some type of thought process that came right before he hit the transfer portal, where he was really, searching for whatever he felt right. Is there anything like, it seems like that is really the genesis of the change and everything, right? That movement inside of him.
That was the genesis. That's a great way to put it. It was the beginning. It was the beginning of the change. Now, as time goes on, we all know this. When you look back after you make a decision, you start to connect dots and you start to see, oh, here's a dot, I can connect them to see why that choice was good for him or good for me or whenever it's making that decision. Well, those dots are slowly manifesting themselves and being connected, right? And so, but the genesis of it, as you said, was I just feel like this is something I need to do. So much so that when I had a conversation with Coach Witt on the phone regarding this issue, he was like, Shawn, what is it? And I said, Witt, I can't tell you what it is. I'm like, this is the hardest thing about it is I can't tell you it's because he's unhappy here. Right. Or because he's looking for that. I can't tell you that. Nothing at Utah was making him unhappy. He was completely ecstatic with where he was going. But this is new. This is how new functions. When new is going to do something, he just goes and he embraces it and he says, hey, jump along with me. I'm going. And that's just how he's always been. And so Witt was so respectful, so kind, He was so respectful, so kind. And he just said, hey, we support you and we love you. You know that. And if there's anything we can do to help, that's how Witt is. He's just that way. And so was all the coaches. Scotty was that way and so forth. So, yeah.
So you've heard the saying, and I know it was certainly in your family, faith, football, and family. And and certainly in the cultures that we live in, in Utah, let's just say Utah State, those come in different orders, and everybody has to make their own decision. What is the number one, right? And I think we're in a jaded world. Shawn, you know this as well as I do. You played football, right? I played in high school. That doesn't count. So it having grown up in it and seen it, but then seeing how the jaded part of the world is sort of taken over everywhere else, how clean it is to be. Let's just talk about you moving to BYU. Can you explain that piece of it? Because that's the piece that Philip's missing and that we simply don't know the answer to.
Yeah. So, we try to raise our kids to understand that faith, family is the most important thing. And then everything else is secondary. And yet at times that's not always how things work and play out. Right? If New was to choose family in this whole process, he would be at Utah.
I was seeing the same thing.
You see what I'm saying? Right?
I do.
But in this situation, faith trumped family. And I think that's the balance of life is sometimes it's faith and sometimes it's family and sometimes it's football. Right? You make those sacrifices and it goes back and forth. And so for him, it was primarily a faith thing. It had to do with faith. Not signing the contract was a faith issue. Going into the portal was a faith issue. Choosing BYU was a faith issue. That's where he's living right now. And I'll be honest with you, as a dad who loves football and want to see my son play at the highest level and play at the best level he can, I just had a conversation with him 2 days ago, and I'm like, hey, how you doing with the extra work that you do to keep your edge, right? And he's like, I'm going to get there. And I'm like, you're going to get there? What are you talking about? You're going to get there. You've always been there, right? But he's navigating through something that's sharpening who he is as a man. And BYU builds fulfills more of what he has grown and come to become at Utah.
Okay.
Everything that he has become at Utah is now being exponentially grown for him at BYU from the faith aspect. I think both programs are great. laying football aside.
Yeah.
Right. Just put them on the side for now and try to envision helping your child become somebody who has character and who has a faith in God that's going to strengthen his life forever and his children and grandchildren. Let's talk about that. That is what BYU is providing for him. And it's different, right? You can't do that at BYU. You can't have a team meeting, which he called me. That's first team meeting. He called me after. He's like, Dad, I got to tell you what we did on the team meeting. I said, tell me what happened. He goes, we started with prayer.
Right.
And I was like, and honestly, I was like, okay, that's BYU.
Right.
Like, that was my thought. I was like, that's BYU. But for him, he was like, that was like exciting at the 10th level.
Right.
Because he was able to go, wow, there's a merge here that I never felt and saw before. And so he's seeing these little things that faith is a real aspect of it. Now, I'm gonna tell you something really quick. Sorry, it's going off a little bit of tangent here.
No, we're here. We're here for you, not the reverse. Okay.
So one of my biggest problems with BYU, and this was a Shawn problem, and I think it's actually existent in other people. But one of my biggest problems with BYU was, don't claim to be the Lord's school.
Right.
And I hear your mouth on the field. Because when I played against you guys on the field, it felt like I was at SC or I was at some other school.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So that was my biggest issue. And what I've come to discover for myself, just being around the program and kind of humbling myself to see what it is, they're not claiming that. Kalani's not claiming that. What they're claiming is we can be a little bit more intentional in trying to help you to become a better person. Right. We can be a little bit more intentional because the venue allows us to do that. It allows us to bring in faith and the gospel. It allows us to do that. Just as much as if you went to TCU, right?
Right, or SMU. Maybe.
That's right. They're
very much maybe.
Maybe.
And maybe,
yeah,
but there are definitely schools with a faith-based program.
Absolutely.
Utah's not. Utah's a state program. Yeah, it's not, and it's not designed for that. So, so those that are Utah fans have to understand, like I've come to understand, my son is a faith person, and he's at BYU because his faith in God has moved him in that direction. And is he getting an NIL? Sure. Is he getting scholarship, treatment, and so forth? Sure. Yes, that's all part of the process.
Right.
But that's not what's driven him to where he's at today.
Yeah, like it's interesting to hear that, because as a parent, I understand everything you're saying, right? Like, and it makes a lot of sense. Then, like, as a Ute supporter, fan, stakeholder, and everything, who I'm not LDS, right? Nate is LDS, and like in seeing, like, I respect that and everything, but it makes it kind of difficult too, being like a state school, then a school, and then a player deciding to move over to another school because of like a faith reason. Like it's just difficult to kind of digest that if you're not LDS per se, but like it could be applied in different ways too. Maybe like the TCU example or whatever. I think no matter what, it's always going to have an element of difficulty when something like a decision like that's made, and it's probably going to be like that all the time. Yeah. But it's really interesting that you brought that up and acknowledged that. I just think that that's going to be a scenario, no matter what, that's always going to be, again, difficult, controversial, whatever you want to call it and stuff, to some people at least, that might not be of the same faith.
Yeah, and as you mature in whatever you believe in, whatever your values are, right, whether you have a faith or not, or a different faith, as you mature in it, you start to recognize what is temporal. Right. And football's temporal. Football is temporal, no matter how way you put it. I mean, I had to hang up my cleats at some time, and everybody has to, right? even though they would like to probably play forever like LeBron James and be 40 years old. That's probably not possible, especially in our sport.
Right.
But that maturity, that maturity makes a difference. And so for like me, I came to realize that, and I know what it was. Like I thought to myself, these BYU players, they act like they're religious, but they're hypocrites because they swear and they cuss. And I know what they do under the pile in the middle of the field.
Right.
That's not Christ-like. And then I would think to myself, at Utah, I'm an LDS guy, so I can do that, right? Because I'm not at BYU, so it's okay for me to swear and act that way because I'm at Utah.
Right.
And then I realized, wait a minute, who's the real hypocrite here, right? And as I matured, I realized you can't do that. You can't take those two things and force them to act and try to make it work. It's not going to do that. You can realize that they're separate, but they're interconnected. And I think that that's something we're missing is if we can understand, like the yin and yang, right? The yin yang, that's the concept that I really believe red and blue is. And I think you guys were capturing that.
Yeah, I could pull up your logo too, so everybody can see.
Sean, it's day by day. The night of the Holy War wasn't like that.
No, definitely not. No, we have a story about. I went to the game this year, right? Last year, I went up and Ute and I spent some time up there together because we like to do that, and it was really interesting to see how everybody else around us was acting, right? And at some point, you kind of put your head down. You're like, wow, I don't want to be a part of that type of thing. So this is yours. This is your yin and yang, which is amazing because Ute has one just like it. Ute has a yin and yang. Can you display that, Ute? Can you bring that up?
Yeah, let's see if I can grab that.
Let's brag for a second. So you can see
this.
Give
me a sec to find it.
Utah and BYU with the blue and the red dots either side. Did you come up with that yourself, Shawn?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I had a friend create it for me, but the concept came in my head. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. It's brilliant minds think alike. Isn't that how it works? Did you find it, Ute?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Pull it up. So we'll see yours compared to what ours was done 2 years ago. So I'm not sure. We might have
ours,
a little
ours
IP infringement or something. I'm just teasing.
One second.
While Ute's bringing that up, I have a football question for you.
Well, can I finish sharing my thought on this yin yang thing?
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, no, please do. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. That's some legit one there, Ute.
Hey, Shawn, that's yours if you want it, my man. We're not going to use that anymore.
So here's I would love to get this message out. The whole concept behind this, the yin yang, right, is that there's an opposite interconnected self-perpetuating cycle, right? There's opposing forces that interact to create this dynamic system in which the whole is greater than the assembled parts, right? So these opposing forces, in some ways, Utah and BYU are constantly perpetuating this interconnected force that's causing what I consider to be, and it's back at it, right? Because we talked about a little bit earlier what Croton brought, what Urban Meyer brought, and now we're back in this conference again together. But this interconnected identity exists only for the sake of being able to create that system that's actually powerful and dynamic. And so people are drawn to it. And we have to label it by saying things like the Holy War, right? The same thing is with some of these other rivalries that are out there, the Civil War, between Oregon and Oregon State. Like those types of things do exist. And so, and the idea behind it is not because it makes money. The real idea is because each individual who supports their team is drawn to it. And I believe the reason why they're drawn to it is because within themselves they have that struggle. So, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they talk about this idea of opposing. There's a law of opposition, and within this law of opposition, everything works. The minute you remove the law of opposition, nothing exists. Even the idea of a God doesn't exist. So you need these temporal things and spiritual things in a battle.
Right.
What's cool about it is this. This is where my point is. What's cool about it is we actually get to see what's transpiring in us on the field. That's what's happening is we're watching ourselves on the field through the color that we vote and we honor and we pay tribute to. And then that battle occurs and we feel within ourselves this tug of war of like, I want them to win and I don't want that other team to win. And so what I'm hoping is that people would realize that's okay. That's a great competition to have, and it's needed to actually exist. If we take it to a level where it shouldn't be, then we run into problems. And I'll give you two examples. I'm in line waiting for New to get off the bus before the BYU Utah game. And before the buses come to drop them off, some BYU fans come driving by and they're flipping us off and telling us that we're going to lose. And they're just the radical 1%, right? They're not the BYU fans that I know. And I laugh, and my wife's like, "Wow, can you believe that?" And I'm like, "That's just the kids, man. Those kids, they don't really get
those
it."
kids.
and yet, at the end of the game, I see the report of a Utah fan who throws the water bottle.
The bottle and hits the cheerleader.
And actually causes a physical harm, right?
Yeah.
So what's causing them to act that way? What's causing them to act that way is the side of themselves that they don't like, but they have to manifest that through some form of anger. Wow. And it's unfortunate that's what they're doing, but that struggle between them comes alive when the blue and the red are on the field.
Right.
And we watch that. We watch it play out on the field, and we kind of project who we are in ourselves, those opposing forces, onto the teams. And then if we don't control it, they manifest themselves to other people. So
you've been in football a long time. Yeah, that's deep.
I'll tell you. I mean, that's deep, but like
I sense a
actually
book coming. That's what I see coming, Shawn. Is a book.
Tanuvasa story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd buy it.
What's interesting about that too is like I 100% agree with that. Like my experience growing up in Utah, not being an LDS person, I remember like being in like when I was younger and everything, kind of felt like I was left out a lot and everything. And I think that the way I manifested that was pinning it on something like BYU. Like that's the reason that I feel left out, and then that kind of follows you along the way. Then all of a sudden, when you're seeing on the field, it like breeds all that emotion and everything. So there's like a visceral emotion where there's like something deeper than just like a normal game. And I would imagine a lot maybe of Ute fans that were in my same boat might feel that way too. That adds a different degree of element to this game.
Yep. And hey, Phil, I'm a member of the church, and I was feeling it. You don't have to be a non-member of the church to feel it, but I think what you're describing is your history in growing up has fueled some of the reasons why that struggle comes in. And fortunately, you've learned to control that and to keep it in the place where it needs to be. But it's real to watch it on the field. I think we're watching ourselves. I really do think we're watching ourselves fight back and forth.
There is no rivalry in all of college sports as BYU Utah.
No.
And you know how you know that is you look at both coaching staffs, and they're all flip-flopped, right?
That's right.
Jay Hill's over here. You got Jason Beck over at Utah. And it's always been that way. It's always been that way. It'll continue to be that way forever and ever. And this idea that one is better than the other, regardless of what some of these crazy people say, that one's the God's church and one's the one that's built just to beat the God's church.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're talking about schools that have more things in common than they are separated.
Oh,
If
gosh.
you look at values for the universities, they're within just a few $1 million. You could look at the last 50 years of football records, they're separated by like 2 games.
Yeah.
These 2 teams and 2 schools are way more similar than they are apart. And I think that's when you're talking about that opposition, that
Yeah.
blue and red, the guys in opposition. I think it's that straining against those commonalities, and it's the commonalities that frustrate everybody.
Yeah.
So living through this now, having gone through recruiting and all that stuff, do you see BYU and Utah blossoming in this new era of college football?
My goal is, and what I believe is going to happen is, and it's already happening in many other areas of the state. If you consider what Utah is providing, that's above and beyond the rest of the nation.
Right.
You go look at their economic status, you look at the family status, you look at the way, just a lot of different statistics of how Utah is blossoming. This is going to add to it because it's going to increase more exposure to the state of Utah. And so I feel like that is going to happen. The unfortunate part about it is if we can't control the hate. That's the only part that we need to be careful of, is that it elevates in competition, it elevates in recognition. Everybody else, Big 12 is starting to learn what this rivalry is all about. I mean, and they got a taste of it, right? And it's going to be this way for years to come. And that's great. That's great for them to see. So yes, I do think it's going to elevate who we are as a state and the 2 different programs and what they bring to the table. It's pretty much brother fighting. That's what's happening. I mean, I have another brother. I have another son who was a BYU boy. He grew up.
Oh, really?
My wife painted
Wow.
my 2 boys. My wife painted their room half blue and half red.
Oh, I love it.
BYU flag and it was like. And one time they were in the garage and they were working out, and all of a sudden they started mouthing to each other, and then they started fighting. And I just sat there and watched them. I let them fight. And that's what we're dealing with is, and I hope people in the Big 12 would see, the only guy that makes you better than yourself is your brother.
Right.
Is your brother. They make you better than yourself. And you can hear those stories from multiple types of athletes in the world. They pay tribute to their brother, older, younger, because they push them. They pushed them and pushed them and pushed them. So I think the rivalry is good. I don't think it should be taken away. I think it's good. It just needs to be, we need to handle it a little bit better.
So, Shawn, I've got one last question for you. As a prior Utah player, a Utah diehard, New was a Utah diehard too. When he actually made the decision to go to BYU, what the heck were you thinking at that time? Be honest about it. Like, we get the parent stuff, but come on, like, let's be real about this. What were you thinking?
I was honestly thinking, who am I? Like, what's happening to my life?
How about you have to buy brand new wardrobe? That's what I would say.
Oh my gosh!
I've got friends that we have been friends for years, and they're all BYU fans. I was the only Utah guy on this group text that has been together for years. And every year they played, or every time they faced each other, or every time there was something, these guys would always be hounding me. And I just sat back and laughed and said, hey, we've won 9 times. Why are you guys whining? You won 1 time. Stop complaining. So it was very, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it's like waking up from a dream and going, is this a dream, right? This shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen.
But and now on the flip side of it, I mean, I met with some of the staff today. I met with some more guys from BYU today, this morning, and my heart is converted. I am converted.
So you see the Kalani mantra and message getting out there. Then
it's beyond the locker room. It's beyond the staff room. It's oozed its way into the streets of that of Provo, and it's just slowly making its way more and more and more. I think people had a hard time with his style at first. I knew Kalani from a while ago. I knew what his style was, but I think after his learning curve, they are starting to see that he is a man about character. He is a man about building, young men into men and stuff. So, I love Utah. I still have Utah gear. I still wear Utah gear. I haven't given it away. I go to the gym and people will come up to me and be like, "Hey, what are you wearing? Why are you wearing that?"
I think I saw a Twitter picture of you underneath like the lat poles or something. And
are you serious?
Utah gear. I saw that. Yeah.
Hey, you
So
that's all right, though. You're a graduate. You can wear that whenever you want.
And I don't care. And part of it is I don't have any BYU gear yet, so I'm waiting for the BYU gear to come out so I can get some.
Kalani, get on that. What the hell?
But
all right.
No, I'm good. It was tough, Philip. It was tough, but I'm good now. I'm happy.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, we appreciate you coming and spending this
100%.
much time with us. I didn't see any super chats, so I'm not going to keep you very long. But can I ask you, would you come back? Did you have fun? Would you do this again?
Oh yeah, man.
Let's talk football next time you come. Let's talk about previewing.
I would love to talk football.
Okay.
Football would be really good to talk about, man.
Yeah, we couldn't quite get not enough time tonight, but I would love to talk to you about previews coming this upcoming season. ESPN just picked Utah to the quarterfinals in the next playoff. So
I know, and Vegas put their money on Utah.
That's true.
Hey,
I love it.
I'm optimistic.
I hope that keeps happening.
Just kidding.
I hope that keeps happening. Keep Vegas, keep Pate, just keep putting pressure on Utah. I'm okay.
Hey, Utah's learned. Hey, we're quiet. The fan base is being quiet. We've been a little humbled, and we're ready to go.
That's good because it was humbling. You guys got trounced. So all right.
I didn't follow that very much, but what happened? Why did Ute fans come out? I mean, I'm typically not one to go out and post stuff like that, but why did they come out and just walk around like their head so high? Like, what was that all about? Can you explain that?
I can explain that. How much time have you got? I mean, how deep do you want to go into this again?
There's psychosis. I mean, go ahead,
it goes back to the feelings that Utah. Here we go. Like, so Utah, obviously, you know this more than anybody, Shawn. Like when Keanu was playing in the Pac-12, how big a deal that was, being in the Pac-12 conference and what that did for the program. I went to Utah in my undergraduate back in the Urban Meyer days. I went to graduate school 10 years later just to see the difference.
Yeah.
And just what it did for the university was fantastic. Just like it's just a different level and stuff. So Utah felt like it was building. The football success was getting to its peak and everything. And then all of a sudden the conference starts fracturing, right? And and lo and behold, BYU, who, had been not a priority for a long, let's be honest, but like not the biggest priority because USC and other schools all of a sudden rises, right? And so the pushback to leave a conference that you've had success in to go into the conference where your real arch rival is and everything, there was pushback. And that caused a lot of animosity between fan bases in Big 12, BYU, Utah, to push back against that because they didn't want it to happen. A lot of Ute fans didn't want it to happen. And plus, I think that culturally, a lot of Ute fans too liked the fact that there was alignment in California and in California schools and that type of, research schools and everything. Hey, we're linked with the Stanford and the Cal Berkeley and everything, and Washington and Oregon and these schools that they wanted to be peer institutions with. They love that. And in fact, the benefits of the university when I went there was fantastic from where I was in the Mountain West days. So the move from that, when that fell apart, the resistance to come over to where the arch rival was created bad blood at the very beginning, pushback, and voila. And all of a sudden, that just started the effects of the trash talk before last season and everything else that we saw that came to fruition.
Well, this is where fans need to understand the game a little bit more. No matter how much you're winning by, as soon as halftime comes, the the language in the locker room is always it's 0-0. It's 0-0. You can be winning 21-0, 35-0 at halftime. The language in the locker room is don't take your foot off the pedal. It's 0-0. And unfortunately, that's something we probably missed as Utah fans is it's 0-0. It doesn't matter what you did in the Pac-12. It's
Right.
0-0, and we're starting all over again. And you don't throw fuel on the fire to get another team upset to want to beat the guy who's talking all that talk. Don't do that. So I can see why, why Nate is saying keep that, right? Keep that.
Yeah,
keep that.
right.
We'll stay on
ego
this
trip.
side of the argument
Sure.
and stuff. So I just hope, I honestly hope it didn't do damage to the image of Utah among the conference, right? That's what I hope.
I don't know. that ship may have sailed, Shawn.
We
I don't
hope
know
that,
about
Shawn.
that.
We hope
I
that.
think this next year is going to be very eye-opening. If Utah bounces baah and goes 11-1, it'll shut everybody up.
Yeah.
You know that as
Yeah.
well as I do. It's all scoreboard, right? Come out and win
Yeah.
games. Nobody cares. Ute and I can only speak for myself. I want Utah to be undefeated when BYU plays them. I want BYU
makes
to be
it better.
undefeated when they play.
It makes it better.
Everybody's better off if they're undefeated. The Big 12 conference is better off when BYU and Utah are both at the top.
Yeah,
That's right.
I totally agree.
Doesn't mean we will be. It's a very strong conference, but that's the dream, right?
Well, I'm planning on being at the top. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a winner. I'm a fighter, and
Excellent.
a lot of my heart was hurt last year, and now wearing blue. Hey, the dream's high, bro. We're going to win. We're going to fight and win.
Let's go. I'm ready. Let's get this thing done. All right, Shawn Tanuvasa, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Do you want to ask us any questions or say anything else on your way out?
No, I appreciate the love. I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to, share the message.
You bet.
I'm a Utah man till the day I die. That's my alma mater. That's what I graduated from. But I've become a Cougar now, and we're gonna go out and fight. I think my message probably to the Big 12 would be there's a lot more to learn than football when it comes to these two schools.
Right.
Well said.
Yeah, that's what we're preaching. Every time we're on together, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shawn. We will see you sometime in the near future. We'll definitely talk preseason football with you if you'd be willing to come back.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. I love the sport, so whatever you guys want.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Shawn Tanuvasa. I'm going to give you a clap out. We don't have a sounder. You have a great night, and go Cougs. That's all I can say.
Go Cougs.
Go Utes.
All right. See you later. All right, Ute.
Oh,
How
man,
about
good
that,
stuff.
huh?
Good stuff.
You're not going to get any better than that. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Everybody, look him up, Shawn Tanuvasa, on Twitter. You can see the reader right at the bottom. You can see where it takes off and gives his kicks his contact off on Twitter. Please look him up. And his son, Keanu, goes under NU Tanuvasa. And there was a lot there. What did you have to think about all that?
I thought it was real talk. I thought it was real honest about the decisions that were made. And I think they make sense and everything. And like, hey, you know what? Like, if it really was like a faith-driven decision, who's to say that? Who's to argue with that, right?
Right.
I mean,
you can't argue faith. Can't argue.
It's the baseline. The NIL is the same and stuff. 40 schools coming after him. So it is what it is. I mean, he made this decision and everything, and I understand it completely. It's still like as a Ute fan supporter, it's always going to be hard, right?
Sure.
Like based on something like that, because like you'd love to get the recruit. If I'm a BYU fan, it's like heck yeah, right? But like on the other side of it, it stings still, but that's just part of it. But I understand it, and like it makes perfect sense to me and everything, and he's completely justified for doing it.
Well, and I hope that our show and other interviews he's done will help bring back the emotion that was tied into it. Was it extreme and hot in November and December? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, you can't question people's faith. You can't question their family values. And at the end of the day, they're going to do what they need to move on and be successful with certainly the schools that they pick. What I would ask you is, what do you think about this idea that at the administrative level, any school, I'm not going to put blame on any school, uses their messaging as pretty much put it on the player, saying it's your fault. We did everything we could, and we're exempt from any responsibility if you don't pick us as a school. Because I think that's
welcome to sports. That's sports. It's pro sports. That's any sports.
It's dangerous.
Well, it's tribalism, right? And sports is tribalism, and like you're going to be rooting for your tribe. And when somebody leaves your tribe for whatever reason, you're going to align with your tribe. You're not going to align with the guy that left your tribe. That's what I'm a diehard Chief fan. When people leave the Chiefs for free agency and stuff, like, hey, I feel the same way. I'm upset, right? So like it's the same way in football, college football. So it's just sheer tribalism, and I get it and everything. Is it fair? No. Is it not? Is it not fair to the player? Not fair to the family who gave their heart? But is it human? Yeah. Does it happen outside of college sports? Yeah. Does it happen all around the world? Yeah. Does it make sense? Yeah, because of the emotional connectedness of the institution, not the player.
I think it's there's a lot to learn there. Controlling, in my opinion, as a coach, I don't think you can make a lot of those statements. I understand what you're saying, but in my opinion, if you're at the top of an organization, you need to be the captain steering the boat. Nobody wants to go to the wheelhouse and find the captain run around with their head cut off because they can't find the right lever to pull, and they blame somebody else for not pulling it. That's where I think it's real dangerous. So, and everything you do in social media now, every interview you do can be recalled like that. People clip it out and will turn around and use it against you, which is another reason why I think the more even-headed people that are around you, the more successful you're going to be.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the conversation we had with Shawn? What were your big takeaways and everything with? What did you learn?
One thing so a couple. First thing is I can feel the emotion and the toll it took on him and his family to go through this process. Between the schools, 40 plus schools reaching out to your kid within a few hours of going into the portal. That's overwhelming. You mentioned the defensive line coach for Georgia. Who wouldn't be honored to take that phone call, especially on Christmas Eve? And it so that toll that it took on them, I'm really empathetic for. And in turn, I think he looked at the rivalry itself as, man, this is just not the thing that's driving the bus for us, right? It's what everybody around us, we live in Utah, it's what everybody around us is telling us is the most important thing. But he wants it to be, if he could turn it into a healing moment, I think he would. I think that's the purpose of the Yin Yang. I think that's the purpose of some of the messaging he has. I was reading some comments in the comment section, and sorry we couldn't get into any comments, everybody. I'm barely getting to Ryan Willie's new membership. By the way, Ryan, thank you again for becoming a loyal member of the Mafia family. By the way, we do have new member videos. So if you want to do what Ryan did and join, there's more membership videos. We're talking about Pac-12, Mountain West, and other things that are going to be going on shorts as we go into the off season. Did you want to preview something?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, check this out, Ryan. So you're gonna like this. Everybody else is gonna like this. Got a new video dropping tomorrow or the following day. Let's take a look. It's gonna be the best of Texas in the G6 space, guys. This is a new Wildview University realignment video. I'm gonna show you one piece of analysis. I'm not going to give away the whole thing here. I can't do that. You got to watch the video, but check it out. So here's the idea. The Pac-12 needs to expand. We all know the Pac-12's in trouble. They need to go expand into Texas. They want to go expand into Texas. So the question is why, who in Texas would jump over to the Pac-12, and who should the Pac-12 consider as the best candidate in the G6? And there's 6 schools in the FBS at the FBS level, G6. In Texas, that's UTSA, Rice, UTEP, Texas State, North Texas, and Sam Houston State. So we're stack ranking all 6 of those in-state schools to see who's the best realignment candidate based on certain criteria. So watch that video drop in here. very interesting to see who shakes out number one. First off, football viewership, UTSA with the highest out of all these schools, as you can see on the screen.
I think we have almost 10 short form, 10-minute or less videos that are member videos now. So Ryan, go check those out. And obviously going into the off season, you remember from last year, that's where we make hay. More videos are coming, but you have to be a member to view them. And if you want to do that, just go to the College Football Mafia Network page on YouTube, and in the comment section, just hit that little $sign and you can become a new member and watch those videos. The video library now is well over 50 videos, if that means anything to you. A lot of good stuff there. Let's get to a few comments. I know you got to go, Ute. So let's do a few of these and then we'll wrap this up. First one, Clint Moses gives us the claps out. Thank you so much, Clint. Oregon State in the house. Good to see you, man. Thank you very much I hope you enjoyed the video or the interview. I think Shawn does a really good interview, and I think there's some insight in there about NIL and how kids are just inundated with choice. It's insane.
30 seconds SMU's offering?
Does that surprise you? You and I just sort of go, right? Yeah.
I mean, we get it. We would have guessed that and stuff. That's so immediate.
It is. It's overwhelming. Wild Ute. David McKenzie, a lawyer in the house, coming in and giving us positive reinforcement here. It's always been regionalism that has generated regional rivalries. Please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're in agreement here that regionalism, but you have to look at the BYU Utah rivalry and the faith element. I mean, what I mean by that is the church element that adds a different layer to this rivalry. I mean, I would say about half Ute fans are LDS, half aren't.
Yeah,
ones that aren't and stuff. Right. I mean, it brings a different element into the game. You're not just regional. You're not just 50 miles apart. You're not just good football programs. You're not just differing colors. You're not just everything. It's the whole religious element adds more to this game than any other game and more emotion to it, in my opinion. So that's what I'm talking about with this one. It is regional, and all regional rivalries are crazy, competitive. But this one's just different because of the religious element.
Yeah, I think that it's really, really important that distinction stays out there. Are there other rivalries, David? We recognize the national rivalries, right? We're not stupid. We get that each one has its own little intricacy. This is the only one that is inbred. I love another example. I've seen some one was Baylor TCU. I don't know that those denominations of Jesus Christ went to battle at any point. There are actual entities that in the state of Utah that shot each other, and these families are inbred. You heard Shawn himself say he's a graduate. He played at the U. He's got a son that was already a BYU Cougar, and now he's got his oldest son is now playing at BYU. That couldn't have been an easy transition. So we're not here to justify anything. I'm not going to put words in Shawn's mouth, but it seems a little trite to just say, yeah, right, rivalries are everywhere, so what? I think it's going to take time for people to understand this particular one. Ute, who is not LDS, I think has always given you guys a very distinct and knowing example of what the difference is, because he was at a school that is half LDS.
Right.
He was there. He lived through it. He had fans on either side of him in class that had family that were BYU fans.
100%. And again, my experience growing up in Utah and stuff, you kind of did feel like an outsider. So whenever you feel like an outsider in a community, then there's going to be a little bit more depth to the feelings and stuff that you have towards something. And I think that manifests on the football field, like Shawn Tanuvasa was saying. I think that's 100% right when he's talking about that. And that's not just regional. We're talking about something completely different that's way deeper than just regionality here. That's what the Holy War is for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, I'm reading all these comments. Sky has come in, obviously a Utah fan, and I'm reading a lot of your comments here, Sky, and frankly, there's not a lot to answer there. as a BYU fan, could I don't, but could I sit up and say we won? Okay, I could do that. Do I do that? Have I ever done that?
Not very often.
No, that's not my bag. So I understand your frustration, but for me, a lot of the reactions we're getting from Utah fans seem really small. They don't seem deep. They're very painted around things like money. And if you can't hear a guy like Shawn explain the difference to him and his, there's nothing we can do here talking about it or trying to justify it. So I don't really feel like going into that conversation tonight, Sky. I appreciate talking to you on Twitter and everything, but I'm not really into arguing, especially tonight. We've had such a good positive show. Go ahead, you.
Yeah, let's pull up some more comments here. This is really
go ahead.
this is awesome right here. So Timothy Green, he says, kind of reminds of the Hatfield and the McCoys from West Virginia, Kentucky, all over a hog. like there's some truth in that. Like it's different still, but like it is that deep. It runs that deep. The Hatfield McCoys. That's a pretty good analogy right there, Timothy. Like just add like say that the Hatfields were LDS and the McCoys were not, or something like that. Then we're basically there, right?
Right. No, there's no doubt about it. Hatfields and McCoys had kids that intermarried too, which made it even more complex. Like, absolutely. Yeah. What else? Give me another one.
Let's go here. Coos jumping in. What's up,
Coos?
Hey,
Coos. Good to see you, Justin. Happy New Year. We got to get together and do another team up, man. I'd love to have you on the show. We need to work that out. It's usually been my problem with scheduling, but hope you're doing well. Hope your family's doing well.
Let's see.
Excellent stuff, fellas. I love that. That's great. Got any others?
I think we're out.
Are we? Okay. All right. Conundrum says perfect guest for Holy War week. He's on my on my re-dial for Holy War for sure. Somebody else asked a question. Is the Big 12 schedule out yet? No. And there's rumors they're going to make it a big thing. The ACC already did theirs. Everybody knows that. So maybe Brett Yormark wants to get a little more bang for the buck. Maybe schedule around a bigger window. I don't know. Do you have any idea why there's been a delay on that release? It's never seemed speedy to me.
No, it's not speedy. It's going to come out soon and everything. I'm super interested in knowing what you think about Utah being projected to be the 3 seed according to ESPN. What do you think about that, Nate?
I think it's great. Go for it. I really have no trouble with it. And I've told you for 2 years, Utah hasn't done so well under the bright lights. So you guys were great when you were in the Pac-12 and you were the plucky understarts trying to take down Oregon and USC. Since you guys won that first, well, let's call it second Pac-12 championship, it hasn't been so good.
It's been 2 years. I mean,
I'd let you go. Go ahead and take it. I'm all for that.
Look, I mean, I think that it's kind of amusing to see that. It's a shock to see that Utah came as a 3 seed. Like, I mean, all the chatter in the offseason is about how BYU and ASU are going to be the powers next year. And so
we'll see.
Utah picked to be the 3 seed, not just the 4 seed or in. And the only
and to win a game.
And to win a game.
And to win a
surprise. Game. I mean, like ESPN clearly thinks that the U defense without Keanu Tanuvasa will be strong, very strong in everything. And that the new players like Devin Dampier, the quarterback for Utah, is going to be a huge difference maker. But like Jason Beck's probably the biggest thing. We don't get into this too often and everything, but really Jason Beck's new offense can flip a lot. If he can really convert this thing over and Utah has a top 30 offense in the nation, then Utah could easily make a run for the Big 12 championship. There's nothing that would snuff that out at the moment. There's no proof of that, right?
No, of course not.
No, it's like this offense. Yeah. So I think that the Ute fan base is probably going to lay low pretty much like this whole offseason and everything. There's not a lot of bragging about it like you see last year going into last year.
I think that's hopeful for me. It's already spun up again.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a different vibe. I think it's more of an underdog vibe that the Utes taken into the season.
Let's talk in a month. We'll see. I think full heads will take over, in my opinion. But we'll see. Utah fans, maybe they'll dial it back. I don't know. Rock and Rant checking in. Good to see you, Rock. Can't you all just get along? Sincerely, the ACC. That's funny. Oh boy, guys, I think we're gonna call it there. Let's go. Let's do a preview tomorrow night. I want to make sure I get his name right. Ryan P. Mulvaney, who's a lawyer covering all the news of college football right now, all the NIL stuff, all the player union, non-union, collective bargaining, what rights do players have, schools, how do they deal with players in the transfer portal and revenue sharing era. That's tomorrow night right here at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I will also have co-hosting with me is Rec Talk, representing Georgia Tech, will be here tomorrow night with me. And we're going to talk some ACC as well. So that should be a fantastic show. I invite everybody to come back. We will be talking about the business of college football and some realignment stuff. There's a TikTok right now going on in the ACC. I don't know what's going on over there. Something.
Yeah, we're going to do an ACC live show, like breaking down the ACC. What the heck's going on?
I think that would be fantastic. Look, I asked Mo if we could have a tick down timer, a countdown timer. He didn't say anything. So
we still have the horse race. Remember the horse race for like Miami was sitting on the sideline and Clemson and Florida State were winning the lawsuit. The furlongs, that's what Oscar did.
Let's do that. If you can work it out with Mo, and I'd love it. I'd love a timer. When is that? It expires so 28th, 29th, 30th. 31st is Friday. So you're talking Friday midnight. We'll have to see. ACC. I can't believe we've gotten here and there's still nothing settled. Absolutely blows me away. One last comment from a Utah fan, Steele Austin. Thanks for being here, Steele. Consider becoming a member of the Mafia family if you have the time. ESPN prediction just goes to show the amount of national respect there is for Utah's program and Kyle Whittingham. Win or lose, Utah has clearly replaced Texas as the flagship program of the Big 12. There you go, Ute.
Well, I think that ESPN does respect Utah and Kyle Whittingham. And I think that if Utah starts winning championships again in the Big 12, we did in the Pac-12, but hey, we got to win in the Big 12. About. So we'll see.
You won 2 games last year there, Steele. So maybe 3 games and we can talk or something.
I think that there's going to be quite a shift this year, though. Like, it's not going to be the same. We've got a different story developing here. I don't know if it's going to be a Big 12 championship story.
Think positive. That's all you can do. Think positive. One more from Stormy Cyclone. Resident in Action member. Good to have you here. Thanks for being a loyal member of the Mafia family there, Stormy. Locked on Cougars guy is upset with ESPN picking Utah over BYU. That's nonsense. Just let it go. Who the hell cares? I don't care. I could care less about preseason rankings. FPI's broken, though. I will tell you that. And I had Jeff Fuller scheduled to come on a show, and then I missed his time. So probably next week we'll be talking with Jeff Fuller about the broken FPI. That'd be an interesting conversation. You definitely want to be here for that, Steele. All right, we're going to go. Everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. Thank you for coming back and spending some time with me on the Mafia show. Everybody else have a great night. I will see you here tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll talk some more college football. Everybody else have a great night. Stay out of trouble. Peace out.